Now you see, we are dealing with the human respiratory system. Now human respiratory system deals with the exchange of gases. Now you see, inside the body, it takes place by a simple process of diffusion. Now here you can see on the board, see, the oxygen goes in and the carbon dioxide comes out. This is a basic process, and as terminologies are involved, the method by which the oxygen enters the body is known as inspiration, and the method by which the CO2 is released from the body is known as expiration. Now you see the medium. Now, which forms a carrier of transport? Now here you see the blood. Blood forms a carrier of or a transporting agent. Okay, now you see, oxygen to certain extent gets sometimes dissolved in the blood, because blood is actually a mixture of blood cells and hemoglobin, RBC, WBC, red blood corpuscles mixture. Water is there. 70% of the blood is water, along with these cells and corpuscles, and many inorganic salts also. So with the inorganic salts, this oxygen and carbon dioxide, they react to it. Okay, now oxygen reacts with the hemoglobin molecule, and this hemoglobin molecule is taken to be as a 4 oxygen carrier. That means it is Hb4. Okay, so it carries 4 oxygen along with it, and it releases the oxygen to the tissue, and then very small amount of carbon dioxide can attach to hemoglobin, forming carboxyhemoglobin, and rest of the carbon dioxide mixes with the blood in the form of HCO3, that means a carbonic acid, and it comes back to the lungs. Okay, so lungs is actually the site for exchange, and lungs is richly connected with blood capillaries, and here through the blood, simple diffusion process. For example, the air within the lungs is rich in oxygen, so carbon dioxide will move from the region of higher concentration to the lower concentration, so carbon dioxide diffuses out. And in other case, see, the oxygen, the tissues has got a very lower content of oxygen, so the lungs, that is air that is within the lungs, that is rich in oxygen, will come out and mix with the blood. Okay, mix into the capillaries, and from these capillaries it is transported to the heart. Okay, first of all, it is transported to the heart. Now the volume, simple mechanism by which the volume of the lungs increases and decreases, and that simultaneously, that inspiration and expiration follows, is through the diaphragm. Okay, so diaphragm is actually a muscular band, okay, whose contraction and relaxation enhances the capacity, and in other words, decreases also. Now you see, the blood vessel that is related to here, it's arteries and veins. Arteries, generally, they carry the oxygen rich blood from the heart to the different part of the body. Okay, and veins generally carry deoxygenated blood from heart to the lungs for purification. Okay, now here you see only one artery that is named in a different way, that is known as a pulmonary artery and the pulmonary vein. Pulmonary artery is the only artery that carry deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs, and from lungs to the heart, it carries the pulmonary vein, and from the heart it then again pumps the oxygen rich blood to via the artery to the different part of the body. Then veins carry the deoxygenated blood back to the heart. So this is known as a simple closed circulatory system. That would be the topic of next thing. So this is a simple basic method of respiration. Now you can see here, see, respiration involves the following processes. As I told you earlier, breathing is a pulmonary ventilation. Ventilation means oxygenation, of which the atmosphere to drawn in, atmospheric air is drawn in, and CO2 rich alveolar air is released out. You see, then next is diffusion of gases of oxygen and carbon dioxide across the alveolar membrane, then transport of gases by the blood, diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the blood and the tissue, and utilization of the oxygen for the catabolic reaction. See, in our earlier class we had already done that's at the respiration, cellular respiration, this oxygen is used to burn down the glucose, and that in other senses produces energy. Now you see here, this is a diagram of the human respiratory system, or in other words the lungs. You see the epiglottis forms the cover of the food pipe and the windpipe. Then you have the trachea is a cartilaginous ring that prevents collapsion so that the tube does not collapse. Okay, now you see you have the lungs well protected within the rib cage. The outward membrane of the lungs is the pleural membrane. Okay, then inside is this pleural fluid is there, so that the lubrication is there. Then you have the bronchi, and here you see the muscular diaphragm, whose contraction and relaxation increases and decreases the lung capacity. Now here you see in this diagram it is clearly shown that inspiration air, expiration air is there. See, PO2, that means concentration, and pressure is 104 milligram of mercury. That means Hg is the pressure of CO2 is 40. That means it is within the blood. You see the pulmonary artery goes into the lungs, and here that takes the deoxygenated blood is pulmonary vein, only one. Now see, we have the systemic vein and the systemic arteries carry the oxygenated blood. Here is the tissue level, and here again it is 40 and 45. See, it is 95 to 40. CO2 concentration is 40. This is the level within the blood, and here see CO2 is 45. That means that is a deoxygenated blood, and 40 milligram of oxygen. That means this is the minimum capacity of oxygen that has to be present within the blood. And here you see the alveolar capacity, the see endothelium wall, the blood capillaries. See, this is the alveolar capacity, and here is the actually exchange of gases takes place. Okay, and what is the epithelium we find here? We find the squamous. Now here you see we have few respiratory disorders. Okay, now here you see first is asthma. What is asthma? Asthma is a condition that leads to difficulty in breathing. Okay, causing wheezing. Wheezing means a typical sound produced during inhalation and exhalation. That is asthma. Then we have emphysema. Emphysema is a chronic disorder in which the alveolar wall they are damaged,